Is this topic still controversial? Hi, this is Simon, and today's video is going to be all about switching. In the context of D.I.D and OSDD, switching refers to when a different alter takes control of the body. One of the little vocab words I'm going to add in today is fronting, and fronting is when an alter is in control of the body. This could be the host, protectors, anybody. If you are in control of the body, you are fronting. There are a lot of things that could cause a different alter to front and switch out with whoever is already in control. And these things can be stress, memories, strong emotion, sensory input, or none of the above. An alter might just see something out here that they want to be a part of, and then they might switch out. For example, if someone's playing their favorite music, or if they see their favorite food, or any variety of things that they'd like, they could switch out and then just end up dealing with whatever situation is out in front of them. So delving deeper into these topics, stress is a very big one when it comes to switching. For example, if the person fronting is under a lot of stress, be it from work, school, various due dates, even like traffic or something, someone who seems to be more fit for the situation could switch out. This could be voluntary or involuntary, and then whoever comes out next will have to deal with whatever situation they come out to. And that can be both a blessing and a curse, because it could end up being a situation you're very well suited for, or it could be the opposite of that. Memories are also something that can cause a switch. Like if you come across something that reminds you of a memory that's very unpleasant or traumatic, or something you would really rather not remember, someone who does not carry any stress or the memory themselves might switch out and be much more suited to handle the situation at hand. Going on to the topic of strong emotions as the cause of a switch, this brings me to talk about ANPs versus EPs. Now, these are two different types of alters. ANPs are apparently normal parts, and EPs are emotional parts. Now, ANPs are more well-rounded people, just like you and me, with a full set of emotions and thought processes and various other things, while EPs tend to be holders of specific emotions, be that anger, sadness, trauma, etc. So a strong emotion could cause an EP to switch out, and it could be like their corresponding emotion. For example, if the one fronting is feeling an overwhelming amount of anger, an EP that is an anger holder could switch out in response to that. Sensory input could cause a switch as well, and that could be patterns of light, textures, scents, sights, anything like that. Sensory input like that could be the root of a memory, which would cause someone to switch out as well, particularly if it was a traumatic memory. Something that would remind the one fronting of a memory is not an ideal situation. So for someone to switch out to be able to handle the situation at hand easier is very helpful. Now, the last topic that I'm going to cover today that could pertain to why someone would switch out is something that would be unrelated to these past four topics, and it's more of things that they're personally interested in. So I guess I could put that under the topic of personal interests. This could be their favorite music, this could be their favorite food, this could be their favorite item of clothing that you somehow managed to pick up off the floor. And this could cause them to kind of take an interest in whatever's happening out in the outer world, or this could cause them to almost automatically switch out. We have some playlists on our phone of specific people's favorite songs. Like I was recently playing my favorite song when I felt myself being drawn more towards the front, and I was being drawn out in response to schoolwork, because I do very well in classes. So when we're in our psychology classes, I'm kind of just in the background there, kind of listening in, trying to remember things for exam dates, because I've got a good memory for psychology. And having a playlist of alters' favorite songs can be helpful, especially if you encounter a situation that would be a situation that a different alter would be much better at handling, and you could kind of draw them towards the front and get their attention and possibly even get them to switch out by playing their favorite songs. And that's been very utilized in our life, and it's been a very big help, especially when it comes to school. Now, switches can be both voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary switches do take a little bit more communication between alters, and this can be improved over time. Once you reach a point of higher communication, it can be as easy as looking into the headspace and being like, hey, I see that you're near the front, do you want to switch out with me? And it could be that easy, or it could be something like I mentioned before, like with the music, or even putting on an alter's favorite item of clothing, like this scarf is mine, and if someone wants me to come out, they could, you know, pick it up or put it out somewhere where we could see that, or even put it on, and that would automatically draw me out a little bit more. Although we may be a bit of an odd case, not all systems are alike. This is a very big thing in the D.I.D and OSDD community. So methods that work for some systems may not work for all systems. Now, involuntary switching is something that's seen a lot more in people who have stronger amnesic barriers between alters. They may not know what triggers would bring alters out, and they may just randomly switch. But as more communication between alters occurs, the involuntary switching can go down, and it can be more voluntary and more communicated between alters if that's your end goal here. Communication between alters can always be improved, and this can be improved by little things like leaving notes on your phone or on a piece of paper that you can set on your desk, or it can be started by looking inward to your own mind and trying to like think at alters. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's honestly how we started getting better communication, is trying to share thoughts and communicate that way through the mind rather than on a sheet of paper. That's one of the things that really didn't work too well for us, but it's proven very helpful in other cases. So although it's a bit controversial, I think the best way to demonstrate this kind of switching method that we usually use is to kind of just do it on camera. We've never done anything like this before, and we've never even switched on camera before, so I think this would be really interesting to show, and just for our own reference, it would be pretty helpful. So Fenrir's already kind of close to the front. He's kind of just listening into what I'm doing. So I'm gonna leave a little note on what I'd like him to talk about, and I'm going to play his favorite song, which is almost guaranteed to bring him out. So you all can watch this, and when I edit this, I'll just go back and see what we look like when we switch, because I feel like we just kind of space out for a minute, then look a little bit alarmed. So here goes nothing. So Fenrir's favorite song is Four Faces by The Who, and to avoid copyright things, I'm just gonna play these in my headphones. It always works. So yeah, this is Fenrir, and I have been brought out by my favorite song. This isn't something that was just brought upon me suddenly. This was, I kind of agreed to do it, as Simon said he was going to be working on a video about switching. I figured it might be good to demonstrate. I should probably take off this scarf, it doesn't belong to me. Yeah, most of us usually respect each other's belongings. And I know it seems really cliche to switch and change your outfit, but wearing someone else's clothes can just feel very wrong. Like, that scarf just feels heavy around my neck, especially since I don't normally wear something like that. So yeah, he's left me a note on topics to talk about, so I'll be starting on that. Signs of switches can be very interesting and can vary throughout just about any systems you encounter. For example, with us, we experience a headache that's about here, and that ranges from just a little minor headache to a migraine, and it can be terrible. And I believe this is from a study, I'll put the name right down there, and it found that during switches and different alters fronting, that the blood flow to the right temporal lobe changes, and that's right about here. So that would make sense that we would feel that pain when someone's trying to switch, because that's literally where the brain is and literally where the switch is occurring, which I think is really interesting. So there can be headaches, there can be increased dissociation, there can be stomach pains or spinning of vision, blurring of vision, dimming of vision, and even nausea. Plexus system, who is now our roommate, experiences the nausea before switching and during, and that can be caused by the anxiety of like the blank spaces between switches, because there can be one alter, and then as they're switching there's kind of a blank space where no one is fronting, and then the next one takes control. This is very common as well. The body kind of goes on autopilot for a moment, hence the blank staring off into space, and then another alter just takes control and continues on. And another odd topic I figured I'd go over is how to switch. Now, you saw Simon was using exposure to triggers to bring out me. Triggers don't have to be necessarily bad. They can be something like a song, they could be a favorite color, favorite thing, etc., what he listed before. And triggers can also be very negative things, you know, exposure to things that could cause a panic attack or memories to resurface, but that's dangerous and I would not recommend using those to cause switches. That could have some very negative effects, and that could even cause new alters to come into existence. Yeah, it can be very dangerous. A few of the easiest ways to switch is communicating with alters. Then you could do exposure to, I'll just call them stimuli instead of triggers, because that can be a very misleading word. And then one that's kind of funny is just retreating from the front altogether. So communicating with your alters is the way that we typically do switching around here, and that's basically saying almost telepathically, like, guys, I don't want to be here, I can't handle the situation, or I'd rather not, it's boring, is there someone else who'd like to handle this for me? And then most of the time someone will come forth and be like, okay, I'll do it. I may not enjoy it, but it'll get us through faster and that'll be easier for everyone. And then they switch out and it's fine. And now exposure to stimuli, which is one of the easiest ones we've encountered in our case, and is honestly our favorite, is our music usage. That's one of the reasons why we always have our headphones in, is to keep people at the front if they feel themselves slipping, or just drown out the voices or drown out our own thoughts. And music has been a very helpful tool for us in both switching and other reasons. And then one of the ones that can cause some trouble is retreating from the front altogether. We've only used this like once or twice, and this is when nobody wants to front, nobody wants to switch out, nobody wants to have anything to do with whatever's going on. The one fronting can just retreat altogether and go back into the inner world and kind of just leave the body uninhabited. This can look kind of funny, although some people do have an autopilot. For us, it can only breathe and blink. You may have seen this in our D.I.D versus OSDD video. I'll try to put the suggested video thing up at the top, so you can check that out if you'd like. Yeah, there can be autopilots that are very cohesive, coherent, and it can basically get to the point of being like a default actions, you know, going to class, taking notes of whatever's written on the board, walking around, but we don't have that capability. Some people do, and that can be helpful if no one wants to switch out and nobody wants to front at all. You can just leave that there and hope things get accomplished. But in our case, just leaving the body uninhabited kind of makes people realize, oh, they were not messing around when they said they did not want to front. Somebody better step up, and that usually happens. And it's helpful. It's very extreme. That's kind of a last resort, and we don't utilize that very much. So that was all that was on my little note that was left for me. If there's still anybody who's reluctant to believe that switching can be voluntary, I'd like to really say that it's not controversial. This happens a lot, and there's not always amnesia between switches. If you have good enough communication between alters, you can share memories and keep everyone well informed as you are switching in and out. And it's not a very big deal. This is how a lot of covert systems, covert is a word that's, it's kind of like stealth mode versus overt, which is not stealth mode. This is like blatantly switching, changing accents, for example, during class, appearances. Basically, think of United States of Terror. That's very overt. Now for covert systems, this is a very helpful thing, sharing memories, so that there isn't really much of a difference between alters, there isn't a lot of gaps. Most things are filled in very well, so you can kind of maintain a facade of having a singular identity and kind of carry on with your life that way. But recently we came across a video that was saying that people cannot control their switches. That's wrong, honestly, and I feel like there isn't a lot of information about how to switch, how to control your switches, things like that. Most people think it's very randomized, and it's not exactly like that. There can be situations that draw out specific alters, like going shopping, for example, or going to class, or going to work, or dealing with specific people. We've got a few of that. Like if our friends want to go out or something, not everyone is highly sociable. And that can cause some problems because our friends are pretty sociable. They like to chat a lot, but some of us are not the type for small talk. And some of us really are the type for small talk. So the ones who are, for example, Dante, he will come out in most social situations and handle that with no problem. And now for someone, in all honesty, Simon is not very sociable. He's very quiet, very reserved. His sense of humor isn't there, really. And if he ends up going out and he ends up switching out and running into people, someone else will switch out and handle that for him. So he doesn't have to deal with the awkwardness of, hey, I don't really want to talk to you right now, can you check back later when it's someone else? Although to achieve that level of honesty in our life would be incredible. I wish that could happen, but baby steps, baby steps. So rather than dealing with a situation that would cause him discomfort, he will ask someone else to handle it for him, and typically that works really well. Now, sometimes alters can be very stubborn and they won't switch out, and sometimes you just have to deal with that, and that's very unpleasant, I know, but eventually they will switch back out and you will not have to deal with whatever it is you're dealing with. Another method we've found for kind of a reset is going to sleep. Taking a nap. It kind of makes the brain kind of reset a bit, hence our very strange sleep schedule. If we come across anything odd or if we're feeling really off that day, we kind of just tend to sleep it off, and the next morning things are okay again. Sometimes that can get people to stop being stuck at the front, you know, taking a nap, letting your brain rest and reset, and someone else may wake up, and that can be what you want, but it could also be what you don't want. Because you can switch in your sleep, and that is a very strange thing that we have not really understood fully yet. This is something we're still working on researching and such, because somebody completely random could wake up some mornings, and usually it's just Devin because he's the default. But this varies, and it can be strange, because one day Parsifal could wake up, Beta could wake up, just about anyone really. It's kind of one of those random wheels, you spin it and the wheel spins and it lands on someone, and it could be just that random. That's how switching could be. Great amounts of stress can cause random switching like that, especially when it comes to resurfacing trauma memories. It could be up to many switches in a short amount of time. And this is something that can be a bit difficult to handle, like a lot of switching in a very short amount of time. This has only happened to us a few times, and it was when we were very co-conscious and were able to switch out. I think we were at a party or something, and there was a lot of switches going on then, which was not ideal for a party scene, but you do what you have to do to get through life, and sometimes that requires rapid switching. Yeah, rapid switching is a name for a lot of switches in a short amount of time, you know, because you're switching rapidly, so rapid switches. There is some vocabulary I should go over when it comes to switching. Just a couple of things to try to remember. It's not, like, ideal to know all the words to go with D.I.D and OSDD, because there is a lot of words for all this. So a couple that I found helpful to keep in mind are rapid switching, co-fronting, which is when two alters switch out kind of at the same time, or one is out, then another switches, and is kind of parallel. That's kind of like that driver and passenger analogy that's used frequently. Although in this case, it's like the driver is trying to drive, and the passenger has reached over and put their hand on the wheel as well. and they both drive, and sometimes it works very, very well. And other times it's like that scene in Cat in the Hat where there's 3 steering wheels and it's chaos. But hopefully that doesn't happen to you very much. And another word I've seen a few times around is switch slapping, which is when you switch very quickly. For example, if someone is, doing their homework or doing something, someone could just suddenly switch and be like, it's my turn, I'm gonna do this now. And that's switch slapping, because it almost feels like you're being slapped sometimes, or just like pushed out of the way suddenly, like a slap, so switch slapping. And that was our little vocabulary section for the day. I might actually start to do that, vocabulary section of the day. That sounds very pleasant. Alright, anyway, this has been all about switches, how to switch caught on camera, so all about switching. If there's anything else you'd like to know or anything we left out, please let us know in the comments, and like and subscribe if you'd like to, and thank you for watching. Switching isn't as scary as people may make it seem in the media. It's very common, and this can happen many times a day. For us, honestly, it happens about 3 to 7 times every day. We switch between alters, and it's a very common thing for us. It's a very common thing for a lot of other people as well. So it's not nearly as scary or taboo as people may make it seem. And hopefully, through more of these videos that are popping up on YouTube about switching on camera and what switching is, may make this a bit easier for people to digest.